So when I was young, my mom had a hobby that was. Can you leave my mic alone, please? Sorry, it's the cat again. Um, she would have a hot hobby. She would go to her local dog shelter and adopt dogs that were about to be euthanized. So we always had dogs in the house, one or two at a time, but they were temporary dogs. They were not there to stay, they were there to get trained, and then my mom would try to find them. would try to find them a nice family. And I really liked that because we always had new dogs. They were all different. They all had their own personalities. And I really liked that, even though it was sad to see them go away at one point because we weren't keeping any of them. But she was saving lives and it was just, something good to do. Eventually, she had to stop because of her job and it was really costly. Like I mentioned, she would adopt them, so she would pay for the adoption, but she would give them away for free. So she wasn't making any money out of it and it started to become very expensive and time consuming, so she had to stop doing that. But I really like to go to shelters just to look at the dogs. And one day we went past the shelter and I asked my mom, can you go look at the dogs? I want to pet them and all that. So she said, all right, but we're not going to adopt any dogs. We're just going there to look at them and pet them. And I was like, it's okay, I just want to see the dog. So we go there, and in one of the cages, in the corner, there's a Doberman. And back then, Dobermans had the same reputation as Pitbull. And people were thinking that those dogs were really very aggressive and dangerous. But this one was in the corner looking depressed. Her ears were low, her head was low. And my mom asked if she could, take her out of the cage and look at her a little bit. And we got told that this Doberman was about to be euthanized because she had been there for a while, and because of her breed nobody wanted to adopt her and they needed to make up some space for new dogs, so she was the next in line. So they took her out of the cage and she came to see my mom very gently, wagging her tail, and she seemed so sweet. And my mom started petting her and she just hugged my mom. She got into her arms and she put her head on her shoulder and she was just hugging her. Really sweet, really kind, nice and gentle. But we weren't there to adopt a dog, so at one point my mom was like, I would like to bring you home, but I can't. And she tried to, pull the dog away to put her back in the cage, but the Doberman didn't want to go back. She grabbed my mom with her paws and refused to let go, so my mom got teary eyes and she was like, okay, I cannot put you back there, you're coming home with us. So we brought her home, but like the other dogs, my mom had in mind to just try to find her a new family. She was, again, a temporary dog. She wasn't our dog. So that's what we did. But turned out that that dog didn't need any rehabilitation. She was very well behaved. She had no problem. She was super nice. She was going outside to do her things. She wasn't breaking inside the home. She had no anxiety or anything. She was just a really friendly, nice dog. And she wasn't shy anymore. She wasn't depressed anymore. She was very active, running all over the place and playful. And we loved her. But we had in mind that we couldn't keep her. So we tried immediately to find her a family. And eventually someone came to adopt her. And she was, again, very friendly and they loved her. So they brought her home. And a few days later, they called my mom and they say, can you take her back? We really didn't understand at first because she was a really nice dog, so why would they want to get rid of her? And they explained to my mom that since she had been at their house, she stopped eating and drinking, and she was just in a corner of a room looking very depressed, and they were starting to worry about her health, and they thought it would be better if we would just take her back because obviously she wanted to be with us. So of course we agreed because that was our job to help the dog, and they brought her back home, and she was immediately a new dog. She was happy and playing around and super happy to see us, and she started eating and drinking again. So we thought, well, now this dog is our dog. We're gonna keep her. We're not gonna try to find her a new family. She's meant to be with us. She wants to be here, so we're keeping her. And we started bringing her all over the place. Like, she was always with us, and she was just so amazing. And we named her Maya. She would come with us on fishing trips, and she would play in the water and try to catch fish. Like, she knew what we were trying to do, and she would try to help us. She was amazing. So one day, my uncle found a job at a sand quarry. He was a night guard there, and sometimes my parents would go with him to keep him company and help around. And I'm not sure, maybe they were getting extra money from it. I don't know if they were doing it for free just to hang out. Because I was too young back then. I was about maybe 7 years old, so I don't really remember. But we would go there and bring Maya with us, and we would just hang out and talk and walk around and, do the guard job. I would go there, but I would stay inside. There was kind of a little cabin there that the guards would stay and have lunch in. So I would just stay inside there. So one day we were inside the little cabin having a chat, like we were just relaxing, taking a break, when Maya started barking, and we went outside to see what was going on, and she started running after someone. They were thieves, and they were there to steal firewood. Now, this may seem like a little bit stupid to those who don't know, but firewood is very easy to steal and is worth a lot, because back then a lot of people were still heating their house with firewood, and it was really easy to sell and hard to prove that the firewood was stolen, so it was easy money. Also, you didn't need to break inside a house to steal firewood because they were just there in the open outside. So you just had to back your pickup truck, grab the wood, and leave. So Maya went after the thieves, and apparently my mom said that she never saw someone jump the fence so fast. But because of that, they managed to grab the license plate before the thieves had a chance to run away. And they didn't manage to steal something because the dog spotted them very easily. So they ran away without stealing anything. So my family did what they had to do after that, and it was to call the police and report what had just happened. So the police arrived, and at first they're kind of intimidated by Maya because, well, she's a Doberman, and Doberman are intimidating and they have a bad rep. But she greeted them really nicely. That's a good thing with those dogs, is that they're so clever, so intelligent, that, she knew that the police officers were not trespassing. They were not intruders. They were guests. So she greeted them very friendly, and they kind of liked her. But one of the officers let one of the police car door open. And when Maya would see that, to her, she was going for a car ride. So while my parents were reporting what happened, Maya saw the door and decided to get inside the police car because she thought, hey, we're going for a ride, it's fun. But the second police officer, the one who was driving, when he got into the car, he didn't notice at first that a dog was sitting on the passenger seat. But when he saw that, apparently his face was worth gold, because he got spooked to see that big Doberman on the next seat next to him staring at him, and he got out of the car so fast. It was apparently very funny. Personally, I don't remember very well because I was in the cabin the whole time. It's just what my parents told me afterwards. But yeah, Maya was a very special dog. After that, she kind of became a star at the place for chasing off the thieves that day. So the other guards there knew her and loved her, and she was kind of the queen of the place. Like, she would go on top of those big sand ran conveyors, and she would just climb at the top of the conveyors and look around the whole place like she was ruling over her people, like watching over her kingdom, like she owned the place. But at one point, my parents kind of stopped going there, and my uncle was alone most of the time because this place was huge, and even though there were other guards there, they would rarely be together. Most of the time they would be alone, each in their own separate cabins around the whole place. So my uncle was a little bit bored to be alone all the time. So one day he asked my parents if he could bring Maya with him for work, just so she could keep him company. And because people really liked her there, nobody minded. In fact, they were really happy to have her around. So my parents said yes, and my uncle brought her to work with him. So at one point, he was having lunch, and after lunch, he went outside to go back on his duty, and he tripped down the stairs, hit his head on the concrete down below. And Maya could have run away or just do her things, but she decided to stay with him, and she started to bark for help. My uncle was unconscious on the ground, and he had a pretty bad wound to his head, and he was bleeding profusely. So the other guards around heard the bark, and they immediately know that something was wrong. So they rushed to the place, and they saw my uncle head first on the concrete, unconscious, and they immediately called an ambulance. So they just, stayed with him and all that. Meanwhile, Maya was also around and worried for my uncle. Apparently, she was almost panicking. And then the ambulance arrived, and they rushed my uncle to the hospital. Apparently, the co-workers of my uncle had to restrain Maya because she was so worried that she wanted to get into the ambulance with my uncle. She didn't want to leave him alone. She tried so hard to get into the ambulance that they had to restrain her. And after that, we learned that my uncle had a very bad open cranial fracture. And if it wasn't for Maya, that day, my uncle would have probably died there because the place was so huge that nobody would have known or noticed that he was missing and that something was wrong. So it's thanks to her that my uncle survived this. After that, she was like a hero. Everybody was like in love with her. She was the guardian angel of the place. And after that, sadly, she started after a while to get really sick. I don't know what she had because my parents never really told me, but she had many seizures, like epilepsy looking seizures, and she had to take medication for that. But at one point, the seizures became more frequent and the medicine wasn't taking effect anymore, and she was getting old. So my parents decided to just put a hand to her suffering, and everybody in the family was heartbroken when she passed away. But I'm making this video because a lot of dogs are like Maya. And what I mean by that is that people judge them based on their breed, and a lot of dogs, especially nowadays pit bulls, get killed because they are pit bulls and not because they are aggressive or dangerous dogs. And you should not judge a book by its cover, because Maya was supposed to die, and she was the most amazing dog our family ever had. And I have a dog right now, and he's great and all that, but even if it's been so long ago, I just can't forget about her. She was something else. She was special. And if it wasn't for my mom to stop at the shelter to adopt her that day, she would have been killed just because of her breed. And that's why I wanted to make that video, because there's so many dogs who get killed for no reason other than they have a bad rep because of their breed. And that's such a huge mistake. And I also want to point out that no-kill shelter are really important, and you should really, if you want to help a shelter because you like animals, you love dogs or cats or any animals, try to help those shelters first, because they're doing a great job, a really important job. So always try to help no-kill shelters and never judge a dog by his breed. It's really sad to think that maybe there's so many amazing dogs that just lost their life because they were unfortunate enough to be born the wrong breed. And that's really sad when you think about it. So that's the story of Maya. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like that video, just pet your dog, give them a big hug, and that's it. Bye.